Welcome to Not Entirely Unlike Tea with Christine Collins. Hey there, this is Christine Collins, and sometimes we hear stereotypes around intelligence that very intelligent, smart people get bored more easily because they need more intellectual stimulation, and that their minds are too advanced for really mundane tasks, so they lose interest quickly because they process information faster than other people. Interestingly, in neurodivergent people, understimulation can lead to more dopamine-seeking behavior and task switching because neurodivergent brains need more novelty and stimulation in order to maintain engagement, particularly in ADHD. And for autistic individuals, there's a need for more meaningful, systematic engagement rather than shallow interaction. And there can be challenges with tasks that don't align with one's own internal logic or interests. And the types of theta and alpha wave patterns that can occur during boredom may be particularly pronounced in neurodivergent individuals. There's a need for more dopamine hits in order to maintain engagement. There's a need for more depth and meaning over surface level interaction. And so there are a few different traits that are commonly thought of as being associated with highly intelligent people, but also significantly overlap with neurodivergent. So one example is being a night owl. There is sort of a common belief that intelligent people may lean more towards being night owls because they thrive in solitude, and it's a space in which they can think more clearly because they're undisturbed. There's fewer distractions from others and from other things around them. But there are also natural circadian rhythm variations across all populations, and sometimes those patterns are more pronounced in neurodivergent individuals as well. Things like a delayed sleep phase pattern, which may be connected with dopamine regulation differences and altered melatonin production. There may also be differences in sensory sensitivities around the nighttime environment feeling less overwhelming, because in general there tends to be fewer sounds, lights, and in particular fewer social demands, therefore fewer distractions. Many neurodivergent people find that it is challenging to either get started or to switch tasks, and therefore any kind of interruption, however small, can really present challenges with getting back on track. So doing things, projects, working on things at night where there are fewer interruptions and distractions can sometimes feel more seamless for them. Once they get started, they can keep going, particularly if they get into a flow state when there's nothing to force them to stop or be distracted. At least externally, it's a little bit easier to maintain momentum and to keep going. There's also this notion of hyperfocus or losing track of time, and while hyperfocus is particularly associated with neurodivergence, getting into a flow state is possible for anyone who can access some of those deeper brainwaves where their creativity flows more naturally, ideas flood in, and you kind of get into a rhythm. The hyperfocus is more associated with having a specific interest, taking a great amount of attention on something that is specifically interesting to the person, while at the same time they may struggle with really boring or mundane things, at least things that they perceive as boring or mundane. And again, is tied to the dopamine reward system, which reinforces that interest. When individuals get into this hyperfocus or flow state, it is possible to become unaware of physical needs. Things like taking breaks, stopping to eat, stopping to rest, may be less likely to happen because the individual is so highly focused on whatever it is they're working on. Different neural networks allow for that sustained attention on that special topic of interest and may struggle with shifting executive control over other topics of less interest. Some brains more readily enter these flow states, particularly when dopamine and interest align. It's kind of like time falls away. External things don't matter, And you become so solely focused on the thing that you're attending to that you fall down into it in a very intense and engaging way. So this requires both an ability to engage deeply with complex material, and there are also neurological differences with attention regulation. So the same neurodivergent brain that can hyperfocus for several hours on a really fascinating project may also struggle to focus for even 20 minutes on something that is very uninteresting to them, or perhaps it is a necessary task, but it feels so mundane, there's such a low level of dopamine reward that they struggle to get engaged with it. Another trait that sometimes gets misconstrued between high intelligence and neurodivergence is being highly self-critical, sometimes known as being hard on oneself. And I think the tendency is to assume that very intelligent people just have very high standards of perfectionism because they're able to spot flaws that other people don't. And therefore, they're more aware of their own mistakes and their own potential improvements that may be needed. And their intellectual ability creates a greater awareness of gaps between performance and potential. And while that may be the case, there's also this interesting phenomenon known as RSD, or rejection sensitive dysphoria, in neurodivergence that involves very similar extreme emotional sensitivity to criticism and an overwhelming sense of concern about those perceived imperfections that others are seeing. And it may be more attuned to fears of rejection rather than purely self-assessment in terms of performance and potential. But sometimes it can fall into all or nothing thinking patterns and high levels of anxiety around performing well or behaving well or coming across well. And it can be challenging to kind of pick all of that apart as to say, is this a neurodivergent trait or is there some perfectionism? And of course, some of those habits and ingrained thought patterns can also stem from experiential life phenomenon, being consistently criticized for a long period of time, being accustomed to receiving a lot of heavy criticism that then leads to the way that they perceive the potential criticism that may be coming from others. And it's challenging to say where all of that root begins. One of my own personal favorite ways of getting into a flow state or a state of higher focus, concentration, and especially creativity is to use tools that allow us to get into different brainwaves where we have a reduction in that self-criticism, in that perfectionism, in that sense of anxiety and worry about whether what we're creating is any good or not, which is a very common theme. When we are in the alpha and theta brainwaves, some of that anxiety is lessened, some of that self-doubt is reduced, and we open a pathway for more creativity to flow, for new ideas to come in, and to allow ourselves to have access to a flow state for working on various different types of creative projects. And some of the tools that help us to get into those alpha and theta brainwave states are tools like hypnosis, yoga nidra, and various forms of meditation and visualization. And each tool has slightly different benefits. All of them can create relaxation in the mind. Tools like hypnosis allow us to also shift some of our internal stories. So if there is a lot of perfectionism, self-doubt, self-criticism, self-judgment, and worry happening, hypnosis can be highly transformational for that. Yoga nidra is wonderful for getting into a deeply relaxed and yet also mentally alert balance wherein we can become more creative and generate really exciting creative ideas. And visualization allows us to play with concepts and ideas and possibilities before we sit down and begin creating. It allows us to kind of mold them in our mind first and begin that development process before we're staring down at a blank page. And often when one emerges from some of these practices, it can almost feel like the content has written itself. The idea has generated itself. You come out just eager to grab a blank piece of paper or a notes app or a recording device to get your ideas captured. And this is one of my favorite ways to create new things. It's often how I've written various forms of content, whether it's fiction or nonfiction, and come up with a lot of the ideas that I've had in my business. It's one reason why we tend to get these new cool ideas when we're doing relaxing things. Taking a walk, taking a shower, having a massage, doing something that's not necessarily work related. Our mind is more at rest and allows some of these cool ideas to come in. So if you would like to have more access to tools like that to help your creativity along, I offer a mindset membership that contains all of them, so you can play with some of the different options and see what suits you the best. And all of that information is available in the show notes. And until we connect the next time, I wish you the most magical and creative rest of your day. Thanks for listening. This is Christine Collins at transformcreate.com.